Welcome golfers, and today I'm going to take you through 5 ways that every single golfer can instantly get better. We're going to look at knowing your carry yardages, how to build out your own wedge chart. We're going to look at how you can start to manipulate your clubs to carry the same club different distances. We're also then going to look at how we can vary height around the greens in the short game, so softer and lower, and also speed control in putting, a way you can practice your speed control to get rid of 3-putts. These for me are the top 5 skills that every golfer should know and should 100% practice more. When I do my peak performance pathway, my program I take people through, first thing we do is we go out on the golf course and we do a full-on assessment. And one of the things that comes up with nearly every single player, regardless of ability, is how much tighter they need to know their carry distances. I often see that out there that, just asking people, what are you hitting here? How far does that carry? The answer I often get back is I don't know. So this is something that I feel every single golfer needs to know much better. Ultimately, there's no excuses with this these days as well. There's so many golf clubs that now have indoor performance centres with TrackMan, Foresight, things like that where you can do this. There's a lot of specific indoor performance centres now you can go to as well, hire a bay for an hour or so and stand there in very neutral conditions and get your distances sorted and just work out an average of that. And I stress the importance of the carry distance because obviously different times of year, the ball's going to roll out different amounts, right? So here in the UK right now, very firm, we've had not a lot of rain, so the ball is running out a lot more. That's fine, but ultimately you still need to know how far that club is going to carry so you know what part you're landing it into, because it can catch you off guard very quickly. I'm sure everyone's experienced that if you're landing it on the firm fairways, it's going to run further. But if you actually landed it on the green, it doesn't go that far, right? It'll stop and the greens will receive it quite well. So stressing the carry numbers here is super important because the rest of it is then up for debate depending on the conditions. Okay, so I'm now going to take you through a way you can do this, easily test this for yourself, and then kind of what things you need to look out for. So when working distances, there's kind of 5 things that you're looking out for in terms of the numbers on the launch monitor, and I'm going to use my TrackMan here to monitor these. You've got your club speed, you've got your ball speed, you've got the launch angle of the golf ball, you've then got the total carry, okay, and then the spin of the golf ball. So those are the 5 things really that you're looking to monitor and control and keep consistent to be able to then get consistent carry distances on the golf ball. It's not always, this isn't a test to see how far you physically hit the golf ball. This is more of a test to see how consistently you can carry the golf ball the same number. For example, if your club speed is fluctuating too much, obviously the golf ball is going to fly different distances. So it's really about finding what for you is a comfortable swing speed for each club, and is the tolerance acceptable so that you can produce the same output on the golf ball. Now, obviously, ball speed we're monitoring in terms of strike. Strike's going to be a big thing there. So as you're going through this, if you really miss strike one, obviously you're going to just ignore that one. But pay attention to some of the missed strikes as well. I want you to pay attention to any that you get slightly out the toe, slightly out the heel, and actually what they do. So start to understand that when you do misstrike it, let's say, for example, it's 5 yards shorter. All right, so that's really key because if you've got a bunker to carry and the pin's at the front of the green, well, if you've got, let's just say it's 150 yards to the pin, but you need 145 to carry the bunker, and let's say your 150 yard carry club is your 7-iron, but you know the tolerance, if you slightly mishit it, it actually takes off around 8 yards. Well, if you mishit that, that's in the bunker, okay? So therefore, you might be looking at a shot that actually is more softer 6-iron, knowing that if you mishit that, then it's still going to get lucky and fall on the pin. But really the job there is obviously to miss the front trap and carry it far enough, okay? So some really important things there to learn that help you then on your course management decisions and ultimately being able to lower your scores, okay? So I'm going to take you through this now. I'm going to hit 5 shots with 7-iron, and I'm going to hit 5 shots with a 6-iron, and we're just going to have a look at the numbers. Is there some consistency there? What can we learn from that? And then I'm going to talk to you about how then, ultimately you're going to have gaps between your 7-iron and your 6-iron, and that's going to run all the way through the clubs. Now, unfortunately, we don't always get our stock yardages right, so we need to be able to then improve our skills as well on top of that to be able to learn to hit the different clubs the same distances. So being able to alter the trajectory and the flight with the clubs to carry it certain distances when we're thinking about, wind, for example, right? So we're just going to start with 7-iron. I'm just going to hit 5 shots here and just monitor, obviously, the speed and the strike. If I really misstrike any, we'll substitute that and start again. Just 5 shots here with 7-iron. Okay. First one, happy with the strike. Felt like a nice, comfortable swing. And then we'll just start to look at the difference between those. Okay, speed was actually a little bit up on that one, so we'll look at that, see whether that's a more resembling speed or whether a first one was too slow. Dispersion's quite good on these. I'll be happy with these. That was better, that was more consistent. I wonder if these are what I think they are as well. I'll talk to you about that in a minute, what I think they are typically, and then what they're actually going. Okay, I'm just going to get one more because I think the first one actually was really low. I was actually quite a bit lower on speed than the others, so that must have been a bit of a missed strike. And one more. Okay, so we've got the shots here from the 7-iron now. Now, big thing here to look at is really happy with the consistency of the distance here. Right now, it's going to be a really good talking point because right now, I haven't personally done my distances in a little while, so this is great. Right now, that's a little bit shorter than what I would expect to hit 7-iron. Now, I know my optimal is much further than that, but relative to what's going on right now, the way I'm swinging, the way I'm moving, that's basically how far the ball is going. Now, there's a little bit of factoring with range balls. I've normalised the TrackMan, so it kind of takes that into consideration. So real golf ball, I would expect to be a little bit more out there, which is why I would emphasise for you guys, if you can, do it indoors with real golf balls, because you can program the golf ball in depending on what device you're using, and then you can get a real realistic view on that and use the golf balls that you would typically use, right? So you're getting the spin rates correct and things like that, right? Now, also there's some things there as you go over time, things you can start to optimize, things you can do in terms of working with your coach and be able to optimize distance, looking at launch angles, spin rates, for example. But for now, we're just talking about getting a baseline, okay? So things I'd be looking out for is so I've got the average numbers here. As I said, club speed. If your club speed is fluctuating, obviously so is the distance, right? So here you'll see there's a little plus or minus 0.6 there. So my speed was only varying plus or minus 0.6 miles an hour. So I've controlled my club head speed pretty well throughout those whole shots, right? So I know that I'm going to get good distance control. The ball speed's not varying too much either. So I actually struck it pretty well over that series of shot. If I bring you'll see the strike pattern there. So everything was pretty good. So I'm not going to get too much variance there, which was really good. So although the distance wasn't what I thought it was, I've actually struck it well, and I've got good consistency of how far the ball is carrying. So when I go out and play, ultimately I know that I've hit enough shots there that's a pretty good average for right now what my 7-iron is going to carry. Again, with this right now, I'm taking the spin rate with a little bit of pinch of salt because the range balls are going to add some more, okay? Again, bring it back to that point of just indoors, neutral, real golf balls will really help you with this. But yeah, they're the things I would look at. And again, as you kind of start to want to tweak all these things, you'll start to look at things like launch angle. So relative to your 7-iron, is the launch angle too high, too low? Now, typically with launch angle, you're looking at half of the loft that's on the golf club. Now, from each brand and each manufacturer, they're going to vary a little bit, so you might just have to find out exactly what the loft is. And then typically what you'll be looking for as launch angle is half the loft with each club. All right, it's a good ballpark figure to go with. So again, some data numbers there you can look at and go, okay, well, are they optimal or not? And then some things you can look at working on to be able to optimize them. But again, we're just going to, let's look at this as a ground baseline to really get your understanding of what your distances are at that moment in time. And then you've got some room to then work on as you go forward. Like I said, it's actually really good. I'm really glad I've done this because it's a bit eye-opening for me of right now, it's a little bit shorter than what I would have expected, but this stuff doesn't lie, right? It is what it is. This tells us exactly what it is. If I'm going to go and play this afternoon, I know with a real golf ball, I might expect 5 more yards or so, but I know that's pretty much my carry distance, and I can stand there and comfortably hit 7-iron to that distance, right? So there's something to look out for. Now I'm going to do the same with 6-iron, see what kind of gap we now get between the two clubs. Obviously the data will stay the same what we're monitoring, so we'll just look at the distances, the difference between the distances on the next two, and I'll just be looking at the same things here. The same with 6-iron now, and you had sort of 4 or 5 good swings. Look at the consistencies of everything. A little bit thin, so we'll monitor that one, see what change of speed and ball speed occurs. Happy with that. Yep. Pretty consistently so far, actually. This is good. Again, runs true with the 7-iron, fraction shorter than what I'd have said when I'm at optimal. But a very good consistency actually going on here with the distance. So, you know, I've got to look at that. Okay. Yep, okay. So same again, we'll just quick glance over the data. Yeah, so there we go. We've got, let's have a look at this. So we'll bring up the shots. So you can see a consistency in the carry numbers there through those 5, 159, 59, 61, 61, 61. So very, very consistent. The average then comes out at 160, club speed 86, and again it's only 0.7 plus or minus. So for me, I'm really looking at that and going, I'm really happy with that because I've got consistent control of my club head speed. And on that point, if you guys are finding your club head speed is fluctuating massively, you're trying to hit it too hard, okay? For sure, trying to hit it too hard and what the speed of actually your swing can manage. So try and make sure you find a speed that you're comfortable with, that you can repeat over and over again. Because again, this becomes much more an exercise of getting consistency in your carries, not how far is your longest one, all right? Because we all got that one in the locker that can go further, but we're looking at really being able to control the distances over more shots. So then situations like I explained at the start, when you've got bunkers, water to carry, you know exactly how far it is and what club it is needed to carry there. And also more importantly, if you need to make sure you're not going long of something, you know how far or what club it is you're going to hit so it doesn't go through the back, right? So again, really happy with that. So we've got a distance gap there of 13 yards. So 147 to 160, be pretty much what I'd expect to see between each club, anywhere between 10 to 15. So this is a perfect example here of where knowing your carry distances are crucial, right? We got 128 to the pin, slightly into the wind today, so we're looking at like 135, I think, here. But if you look at the scenario we're in here, long of that green is absolutely dead, okay? So if I do not know how far this golf ball is going to carry, very quickly, I can get myself in a lot of trouble here and make some big, big numbers, right? So I know 135 is a pretty solid 9-iron for me, and this ball with this wind is not going to carry longer than the back of that green. So I'll always allow for about a 3-yard tolerance, right? So let's just say if I'm allowing for 135, my longest hit is probably gonna be about 138. And then the average shorter than that is gonna be about 132. So there's my tolerance. So if I slightly mishit it or don't quite get it and the wind's a bit stronger than what I think, then it's going to land front of the green, which actually it's really safe. I'm happy with that front of the green. The danger is long. So this is really just a nice 9-iron here. And I know from a distance point of view that I can stand up and hit this pretty solid. And I'm not going to bring in any of the trouble long of the green into play. So just on that front edge, but I'm really happy with that because I didn't quite catch it and it just spun up into the wind a little bit, but I've stood there, hit it confidently, and I know that is not going to get myself into too much trouble. Front edge of the green, relatively easy uphill putt there. Now, we obviously don't get the stock yardages out on the golf course, right? We unfortunately get in between yardages. So a skill that becomes very, very important is being able to fill the gaps. So have you got something in the locker to be able to find the 155 gap here for me, right? Being able to find a 155 gap when needed. So can I hit the same club different distances? So what I'm going to do now is how you would then layer this. Once you've got your baseline distances, you'd look at the gaps and what you've got, and then practice hitting different clubs, different distances. So being able to hit something slightly softer, that naturally is going to reduce the spin rate. It's going to bring the flight down. So now all of a sudden you can start to think how you adapt that then into different conditions. So playing in windy conditions, that is a perfect golf shot, being able to bring the spin down. Most people try and hit down on the golf ball more and punch it more to keep it down. Now, the more you do that, typically the more you end up spinning the golf ball. So being able to change the tool, change the club, naturally is going to bring the flight down, take the spin down. But it's a very important skill still be able to fly a certain distance now, okay? So we're going to see if we can fill the gap. We're going to just work on 6-iron now at 155. See if I can kind of find a feeling, all right, to carry a couple 155. So just focusing more on, obviously, that carry distance now. So I'm layering out the distances. Can I now found the gaps? And obviously you do this throughout the whole bag, right? No matter what club you've got in your hands. So let's see if I can reduce some of the swing speeds. And for me, I'm just going to work on what I feel like a bit of a 3/4 swing, so taking some off it. There's other solutions you can do. You'll see people go down the grip, and people do it very, very well. And Tommy Fleetwood talks about this a lot, how he goes down the grip on his irons if he wants to take 5 yards off. So there's something there you can do. No rules with it, right? Just work out what works for you. But then from a feedback point of view, what's more consistent? So I know for me, I prefer to just kind of feel a bit more of a 3/4 swing rather than something flat out, and see if we can get something to 155. But definitely a bit softer in swing speed. That was at 79. That was actually a bit too soft, that one. So that was closer to the 7-iron. Okay, so it needs a little more. Felt a bit out of the heel that one as well, so it probably took some ball speed out. Better hit. Yeah, fractionally slower on speed. 82. Picking it up. 157, so I'll be pretty happy with that. So I've brought some of that distance back. So now I've just got to kind of repeat that feel. And I'm giving myself obviously a tolerance here, right? Again, there's a couple of yards tolerance to work within as I discussed earlier, but this is the skill. This is where it starts to get fun, where you really start to be able to get tight to pins and knock it close and not just hitting stuff flat out. Felt good again as well. 83, so slightly quicker. 156. So getting pretty close to that 155. And one more, see if I can get 155. But I'll be pretty happy with both of those. That could be good. It's overcut just a little bit, so I might have taken some off it. It's a bit slower, 80 miles an hour. Yeah, touch short, 146. That was a little bit, I felt that was a little bit slower. So, but straight away, I'm getting a bit of feedback there, right? And this is just a great practice to do at the end of sessions or all the time, really, just to bring it in, because it starts to give you new skills, all right? Can you control the ball in different ways? What is it you need to do as an individual to take some speed off? And like I said, there's no right and wrong. Take a notepad, take a pen, write down the feels you get from it. Is it going down the grip? Is it 3/4? You know, whatever you like to do, it doesn't really matter. But on top of knowing your distances, I would suggest start to learn how to hit the same club different distances and being able to fill the gaps. And I'll take you through a scenario later on the golf course where this is going to be vital and where you can really use this skill to your advantage on different slopes, elevations, things like that. And it will show you really there the skills of that and being able to do so. And you don't necessarily just have to do it with one club. You can reduce it through all the bag. But know your yardages. Get really, really good at being able to hit your clubs different distances. A great saying I got told once was, professionals have unlimited clubs in their bags, amateurs have 14. Think about that for a second. The pros are consistently hitting shots different distances with different clubs. Their ability to be able to do that is incredible. And I think every club golfer can get really good at doing this. People just don't do it enough. This is my favourite part of the game. I love this. Being able to use the skills, hit clubs different distances, manage the flight and then the rollout of the golf ball. So very downhill par 3 here, a third of the Dukes. Green slopes heavily back to front. Okay, so anything coming in too high and with too much spin is going to hit the green. It's just going to spin straight back off the front. And so a back pin there, I really don't want to be trying to send this like in the air all the way, because if I miss that by 2-3 yards along of that pin, again, dead, right? I've got an impossible chip shot where everything slopes away from me. So I really want to land this in the middle of the green and give it something that can have a little bit of a bounce up to the back, but knowing I'm not going to fly it too far. So 121 yards, I've actually got my 7-iron here. So I'm going to play like a little chip shot with a 7-iron into the middle of the green that will probably land around 115 yards and then should have a little bit of a skip up. But me hitting this slightly softer basically is going to lower the launch angle, it's going to reduce the spin, and it's just going to take a little hop up the green there on that slope. So I'm just going to take out the risk of landing it all the way back there and yeah, see if I can get a bit creative here with a 7-iron. Yeah, love that. So I stopped actually really quick there. So you can see it's come in with a little bit less spin and it's just not going to come back on me. If I hit a wedge hard there, obviously the harder I hit it, the more spin I generate, right? It's going to then start to come back and I start to not be able to know what the ball's going to do on those tricky slopes. So a fantastic skill to really, really get going with. So you can see the severity of the slope, right? Hugely back to front and how quickly that golf ball has stopped just because the nature of the way I've played it, just obviously use less loft, brought the launch down, it's taken the spin out, and it's managed to stop really quickly on quite an aggressive slope. A wedge, sand wedge, things like that people typically would be hitting from those yardages, lands there, that's straight back down that slope, and all of a sudden you've got a nasty 40, 50 footer straight back up the hill. So you can get really good control by just adapting your clubs, using the tools we've got to change the flight and the spin. So we've done our yardages with the long game side of things. We're now going to look at the wedges in particular. So building out your own wedge chart, right? Again, this is something I just see so much from golfers not knowing, but also not being able to have anything to practice this part of the game. So are you practicing enough of hitting wedge yardages? Do you know, such a big scoring area in the game, right? Par fives or chipping out sideways. You see the guys on TV, they're so good at knowing their numbers, and only because they practice it, right? So again, I'm going to go through here now a way of you, figuring out how to work this out, and then a way of practicing it. So I'm going to work with 3 wedges here. I've got pitching wedge, 50 and 56. All right, I do carry a 60 degree, but that's a club I don't ever really hit full. So I'm not interested in finding out how far it goes as a full distance. I only ever use that more delicate shots around the greens, chip in or bunkers. So very rarely will I pitch with a 60 degree. It's much more finesse at that point. So I'm not looking at yardages really. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to start off by hitting each one of these full. So I'm going to go to 3 to 5 balls, okay, good strikes. Look at the average carries of each one of these. Now, I'm not going to try and bodge any of the data. I'm just going to hit pitch and wedge, 50, 56, look at the full carry of each one. And then for me, my system is I then go into what I would call a shoulder swing. So I would reduce speed by changing the length of swing. Okay, so I would feel rather than a full turn, full back swing, I feel that I swing much more to shoulder, both sides. And that should start to bring the distance down a little bit. And then I also have what I call a dead arm swing. So one of the biggest speed levers in golf is the arms, right? Hands and arms. So I have a pitch shot where it feels to me that it's dead arms, where I just make a relatively full turn, but I feel like I'm taking the arms out. Now, obviously they're doing things, but I'm not actively trying to throw the club as hard as I can, so I can reduce the speed. So I'm going to go full, I'm going to go shoulder, okay, and then I'm going to go what I call dead arm, and I'm going to get all 3 of those distances done with all 3 of these clubs. Now, your system can be whatever it likes. There's obviously things you can do, as I discussed in the distances. You can go down the grip to reduce yardage. You can go on a system that is waist height, ribs height, shoulder height, okay? So you've got those different lengths. But again, the things we're monitoring are the same data points: club head speed, ball speed, launch, and then obviously total carry. Making sure they're consistent. So each one of those, all you're really looking out for is making sure you're delivering a very consistent club head speed every single time, and the ball speed stays in and around the same as well. With the wedges, you'll then tend to find that your carry distances will get tighter. Again, if you are fluctuating your club head speed massively, then I would look at changing your approach there a little bit of, okay, finding a swing or a movement that's a bit more consistent, because especially with this part of the game, we are now not looking to hit these as far as they go. This is much more about controlling the distance and being good at it over a longer period of time. And a ways of practicing that, and obviously being able to carry the ball the same distance every time, is being repetitive, right? Can you repeat something? Not can you hit this thing as hard as it can go, all right? And I think what you'll find some things here, but we'll talk about more of that as we start to go through. So I'm going to hit all those shots now, full, shoulder, dead arm, and then we'll take a look at the data afterwards and what we tend to get. Into what I would call shoulder swings now, and I'm doing my 50 degree at the moment. And what obviously you're going to start to see as you're doing this test is you're going to get some cross yardages, right? So, for example, I'd expect this shoulder 50 to go pretty much the same distance as my flat out 56. But now I've got 2 different ways of getting the ball to that same yardage. I'm also going to start to figure out what I feel more comfortable at as well. So am I much better hitting my 56 flat out, or am I actually better hitting a more shoulder swing 50 to control distance and trajectory better? And does it still spin an adequate amount for me to stop it on the green, which it will do. I know it will do. So I was getting my flat out 56, was going around 90 yards, so 90 to 95 yards. So I'd expect this to be pretty much that if I'm managing the swing correctly, because the flat out ones of these were more like 100 yards, okay? So 10 yards off is probably going to be about right. So more shoulder swing here. It's going to be a little bit short, got a bit heavy, so we'll certainly scrap that one. Coming up, yep, 94 yards, so pretty much down to that 90-yard mark. So I'm getting a pretty good idea here, and I know he's going to react, right? So again, shoulder swing. Yeah. It's coming up now. Yep, 87 yards. So pretty much averaging out around that 90-yard mark, which I'd expect it to. So you're going to get cross yardages. You're just going to get different ways of the golf ball getting there, right? So the idea there, like I said, is so that you've got options. If you've got wind, for example, bringing the ball down is obviously going to help you. Front pins, you might need to send the ball up in the air, stop it a little bit quicker. So different ways of getting there. Also, what suits you better. Some players will be better hitting it slightly harder. Some players actually will start to figure out that the softer shot, the shoulder shot, three-quarter shot is a little bit more of a reliable system for them to be able to carry the ball the same distance over and over again. So 87 yards now to this pin on what is a 2-tier green. The pin is at the back of the green here. So super important with the wedge in my hand to make sure I'm hitting the right tier to give myself a chance of a better putt, right? If I obviously misjudge this distance, I'm on the front tier, very difficult putt from there. Now it's slightly uphill and also slightly into the breeze today. So I think it's playing more like a 95-yard shot. Now I have two clubs that could get 95 yards for me. I've got more of a closer to a flat out 56, or I've got what in my world kind of feels like a 3/4 50 degree, okay? Now, from doing this testing over and over again, at this yardage, 95 yards, I know I am more comfortable at carrying my 50 degree on that number more often than not. I can get to that with my 56, but I get more inconsistencies with my strike, I get more inconsistencies with my launch, and then therefore, obviously, my distance control. So I know that 50 degree at 95 yards, where the situation is pretty neutral, I can get more consistency over the carry with this, right? So for me, like I said, this is a nice sort of 3/4 50 degree, and make sure I get that onto the back tier. So I've got an easier putt than anything slightly but short. On the back tier. I didn't quite actually get that, but again, because I've done this enough, I know my tolerance with that is going to be tight enough that I'm not running the risk of leaving it too short unless I make obviously a really bad golf swing. But back to that practice, really good practice to be able to do so you really understand your yardages and also what works better for you. Is it more the 3/4 shots or is it more the flat out shots? What of those options do you tend to be better at? Changing height and speed of the golf ball around the greens is a crucial part to being a good short game player and be able to save yourself shots, right? Now, unfortunately, we don't always get the flat lie, the straight up the green standard shot. We're going to play, unfortunately, put ourselves in positions where we're now going to be below greens and we need to be able to hit it higher and slow the ball down a little bit. You might play on some really firm greens and therefore, especially in the summer here in the UK, the greens get firmer. So you again need to be able to soften the ball. You're going to be also playing up tiers or up slopes where you actually need to speed the golf ball up, all right? Get it running up the slope rather than stopping quick. So being able to change that is a really important skill. Now, the easiest way to do that is get really good at hitting different clubs around the greens. We have 14 clubs in the bag. They all have different lofts and lengths for reasons, right, to influence the speed of the golf ball and the distance of the golf ball. So start using this around the green. I'm going to take you through now a really simple way of how you can practice this, how you can calibrate your landing areas for each one depending on what situation you're in, and then how you can choose off of the back of that or help you choose what club to hit in each scenario or certain scenarios you're going to be faced with, right? So 3 clubs that I tend to chip around the green with, and I will change from this, but these are my most common, would be my 9-iron, my 50 degree and my 56, okay? I have more loft in my bag. I do have a 60 degree, which I will use when I need to. So when I really need to soften the ball up, create some height and some softness, I will use it. Again, on the other end of the spectrum, if I've got a really big 2-tier green, I need the ball to run up some more, I'll go to something like a 7-iron, right? But these would be typically my go-tos, and you'll all have the same thing, right? You'll have a go-to wedge, and in and around that, you'll have some different ideas, right? So you're just gonna pick 3 wedges to start with, right? Now, the first part of this is a calibration phase. So what I've got here is a pretty standard chip shot in front of me, all right? Plenty of green to work with, a little bit of a downslope here to start with, but nothing really going on in terms of the slopes. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and place now a T-peg for each one of these clubs where I think it needs to land in order to get close to the hole, okay? So there's no rights and wrongs, there's no rules. There's nothing to say here I have to use 9 iron. There's nothing to say here I have to use my 56. But what I do need to know is where each one of these needs to land relative to the flag to get close. The 56 is clearly going to come out with less roll, more height. The 9 iron is going to come out lower, quicker, run on more, right? So let's go and place these in. I'm going to do a calibration phase now. So I'm going to go where I think I need to put these, and then we're going to test it. We'll move them to where actually then they need to be. And then I've got a really good base to practice some different shots, okay? So 9 iron, I think from there, slight downslope here, so perhaps going to just roll on a little bit more. I think 9 iron is going to have to land from a distance point of view in and around here somewhere, okay? And then my 50 degree, you're going to get closer to halfway, I think, around about here. And then 56, get closer to nearly 80% of the way. I'd thought it's a good lie, so it should stop quite quickly, around about there. All right. So we're just going to calibrate these to start. I'm just going to test them. Okay, I need to test these first to make sure I've got it right, and then we can actually do some practice on this. So first things first, let's test the 9 iron. And this is something I take through people a lot, right? Because people just don't do this enough. Typically the go-to, people just pick up a club around the green and go, right, I'm going to make this work, with no real idea of what they're trying to do there. Have they looked at the lie? Have they looked at where the ball needs to land? Therefore, has it given them the correct loft, right? So a really good way of practicing this. So our first white tee peg in terms of distance, that's where I'm going to try and hit 9 iron and see if I've got this right. We're obviously going to monitor where the ball lands and then where it eventually rolls out to. So that was pretty good. That landed pretty much on the tee peg, rolled about 4 or 5 feet past. So an acceptance here, where I think would be anything in sort of a 6-foot circle. Depending on your ability where you're starting with this, you could go to like a 10-foot circle and then start to bring it in. But I think a 6-foot circle around the flag in terms of distance is a pretty good guideline. I'm just going to check one more because I think that was actually a pretty good shot. Again, that was pretty good, and that's gone about pin high. So I think that's a pretty good length for 9 iron. Okay, so I've done that pretty well. Happy with where that as a landing area is in terms of distance and how that's then rolling out to the flag. Right, let's test the 50 degree. And by the way, obviously, if you end up, for example, let me just do like where I'm going to overhit it on purpose to the 9 iron. Okay, so I'm just going to overhit this one. So it landed quite far, and it's obviously going to release now past this flag as long as it doesn't hit it. Yep, good. Release past it by quite a way. So all you're doing there, let's say you had the tee peg where that ball landed, which is like 6 foot further in front, you would just recalibrate it. You'd bring the tee peg back. Okay, so you're analysing that, going, okay, well, I landed it where I wanted to, but it's gone too far, so therefore I need to just bring that back. All right. So you're just monitoring that and calibrating. Okay, 50 degree. So we're going to go for the middle tee peg now. So again, about halfway. So let's test this. White cat's a little bit heavy. It's just landed a little bit short and it's released out. I'd expect it to release out a little bit because of the heavy strike. And I've got away with that. It's not a bad shot, but not what I'm looking for here. I'm testing the tee peg. I was on the tee peg. Yeah, it's a better strike, so it stopped up a little bit quicker. That might actually be a little bit too far. I'm going to test that again. I might have, this might have to come back closer to me a little bit, this one. Bit short of it. And it's run on nicely to the pin. So actually I'd feel more comfortable with that being a bit shorter, right? So what I'd do now is very simply, go and move this tee peg back in. So I think it needs to come back 2 or 3 feet back. Right here somewhere, which I think is going to be a bit more appropriate. I'm just going to bring this one over here a little bit more in line. And I'm just going to quickly retest that just to make sure now, all right? But I think I feel more comfortable with that being there. Yeah, that was good. That was on the tee peg, and I'm happy with that. That's rolled up really nicely. Happy where that would finish, right? So Nice little calibration. You can kind of see, the more you do this, right, the better you get at your visuals. And then when you're going to set this out, you're going to get them right pretty much every time. But then obviously the more you practice this stuff, the more you're going to start to understand for you which one of your clubs lands where and how it reacts. So very quickly now when you get around the greens, you're starting to take all this in and go, okay, I know I need to land it there. For that landing spot, that's going to be my 56, whatever that might be. Okay, so test the last one. This might be a touch aggressive, that tee peg, based on what I've just seen with the 50, but we'll find out. Pitched that a bit too fast. It's definitely gone too far. That was good distance. Yeah, that's pretty good. I'm pretty happy. I'm just going to check one more. But that stops pretty well. Pretty much on the tee peg as well, which is good. Yep, again, pretty much on the tee peg, and it's gone a couple of feet past the pin. Perfect, right? So I'm happy with that as a calibration for those three clubs. Now, what you would essentially do is you run a little test now, okay? And you can do this over 3 balls, 5 balls, or 10 balls, depending on what, right? We're going to do a quick 3-ball test here with each one. And what I'm now going to measure is basically, with each one, how consistent I am of hitting those areas, and then ultimately the end result. So the total amount of dispersion or distance away from the hole with each of these wedges. So I start to now build up a bit of a story here of what I'm more comfortable with out of these 3 wedges. And then again, linking it back to, okay, what do I need to practice more, all right? Because on the golf course, we're going to get faced with different scenarios. Let's just say there's thick rough that runs all the way up to the halfway point where that 50-degree needs to land. Well, I'm forced to play my 56 because I need it to carry 70 to 80% of the way for it to be able to then not land in the rough and stop quick enough to get close to the pin. All right, so the situation's always going to dictate what you end up doing. But if you haven't practiced and don't know that your 56 can land that far and stop quick enough, then you're going to get yourself caught in between 2 ideas, 2 shots, and just not quite sure. And that's when I see golfers just not commit to the shot at all, right? So now we're going to do a 3-ball test quickly on each one, and then we're going to monitor the total distance away with each of those. And I'll start to see in my own game there what I'm really good at, what I'm comfortable with, but also then what needs a little bit of work. Right, I'm going to start with the 56. So we're going to go for obviously the furthest tee peg first. 3-ball test. Let's see how good I am at landing in that area, and then what sort of results I get relative to the hole. That wasn't bad. Ah, go on. Okay, more than happy with that, obviously. So I've done the calibrating, so I know if I land it in the rough area and I hit a half decent strike, should be a pretty good golf shot, right? But again, little kind of coaching points here. I'm not changing much of my technique with each shot. Very much just playing the same technique, but using the different club to change the characteristics. Now, obviously, length of swing is going to change a little bit because of the loft, obviously. Okay, but I'm not trying to do anything different here. I think I've overhit that one a little bit. Oh, nice, bang on the tee peg. There you go, good job, got that right. Yep, happy with that, within the 6 foot mark. Now, again, ball flight characteristics, you're obviously going to see height slightly higher with 56 versus your 9-9. And again, the rollout ratio, this is much less, right, than the 9-9 is going to be. That's what it's designed to do. Yeah, I've hit 3 really good shots there. One slightly offline, but those 2 personally felt really good. Okay, I'm just going to go to the other end of the spectrum. I'm going to go 9-9 here now, just to kind of test it and mix it up a little bit. Again, you can do this in whatever order you want. It doesn't matter. Just want to mix it up a little bit. So first tee peg. Fractionally short. I'm going to get away with that, I think, because of the downslope. Yep. And again, you're looking, round your tee peg area, you're looking at a good kind of a 2 foot radius around that tee peg is going to be pretty acceptable. You don't have to get on the tee peg every single time. Give yourself a little bit of grace there. But anything outside of that, obviously, will need recalibrating. It's on the tee bag. I think that's going to run on a little bit. Sit down. Yeah, overcooked that a touch. But wouldn't be too bad. Not as close as I'd like, but it's not too bad. Probably just gone outside that 6 foot circle. Slightly mishit that one, so that's definitely going to be slightly short. But I'm getting away with that a little bit because of the slope. But it's matching the shot intention, right? I'm not doing that on a downslope with a 60-degree wedge or a 56-degree wedge. So I'm getting away with that. So that was a good bad shot. Right, 50-degree in the middle. And while I'm doing this, again, I'm monitoring what I'm feeling comfortable at, where I like to land the golf ball, and obviously then what feels easier. And then, again, what I might need to work more on. Right, middle tee peg. Yeah, it was a nice shot. Just about a foot short of the tee peg, but that's going to be well within tolerance. Yep, good distance, slightly pushed. Kind of just missed that slope to the wrong side, and it just gets a little bit of kick to the right. Pretty much bang on the tee peg again. Oh, nearly hit the second tee peg. Really good distance. Nice one with this. So for me, right, even straight away now as feedback, I'm feeling much more comfortable with my 50-degree wedge here on this one. I feel like my eyes are just drawn more to that middle tee peg quite comfortably. Yep, another really good shot. So my most 3 consistent, missed that one, that was going in, promise. My most 3 consistent shots there on my 50-degree, and I think as a distance control goes, they're the most consistent as well. I misstruck at least one with a 56 and one with the 9-iron. So for me, and I kind of could feel that as I was doing this, that my eyes are more drawn to that middle patch and I'm more comfortable with this. So that tells me if I've got lots of green to work with, then that might be my go-to. That's where I'm going to go first, okay? But I know that because I've practiced it. I've got a good visual where that needs to land, and I can probably do that more often than not. The other 2 ends of that spectrum might need a little bit more work for me to get more comfortable at those. But also if I'm practicing those, and let's say this is all uphill, and I need to use something like 9-iron, I can do because I've worked at it. I know how it's going to react up the hill, vice versa. If I've got less green to work with and I need to use more loft, I can do because I've practiced how that's going to land, how much it's going to roll on, and I'm comfortable with doing that as well. So really, really good practice to start to broaden your short game skills. Remember, I think the easiest way to change the characteristics of the golf ball is firstly change club before you start changing what you do in and around the impact area of releasing it and moving different. So uphill chip shot here. So I'm looking at this and I want to change the speed of the ball in terms of being able to make sure this gets up the slope. So very uphill, what's faced in front of me. And I'm going to go with 9-iron here, okay? Because I want this ball to roll out. So going on the rule here of that, I'm going to change the club to change the trajectory rather than doing anything fancy with the move or the release to do anything different. I'm very simply going to change the club, which is going to give me a much flatter flight and more rollout to help me get to this back pin placement here up the slope. Using more loft here, I'm going to have to fly it much further. Also, obviously, it's not going to have any run out into that slope as well. So changing the club to give a change in characteristics here, I'm probably looking to land this about a quarter of the way, and then it's going to run up the slope to the back. Yeah, you go. So try to dig in there, even on that upslope. But because I've chosen the right club for the right scenario, it's just released up there nicely, and I've got a nice little putt from there. We now have the opposite scenario, so where I've very much got to slow the golf ball down. Everything is running away from me here. I'm coming out the rough, so I'm not really going to get much spin. But as it hits the deck here, it's just going to keep going. Okay, so I'm going to go the other side of the spectrum now of my most loft, which is my 60 degree. And I'm actually going to use a little bit of open club face here as well, because I really need to actually add some softness to this when it lands. I'm looking to take the ball speed out by opening the club face. That's going to do that. It's going to help me launch it a little bit higher, but it's going to soften the blow on the golf ball as well, so it doesn't come out hot. So I'm not going to do anything really different with my technique apart from the fact that I've got a different club and I'm opening the club face a little bit. And relative to the 9-iron, this will soften soften the blow into the golf ball and help me slow the speed down this slope. Brilliant. Oh, and see how quick that was down that hill, right? So that only just landed on the green, and the hole's actually done me a little bit of a favour. So a classic example where it's super important to be able to change flight trajectory and the speed of the golf ball to help you adapt to different situations, and each scenario is going to require something different from you. Speed control for me is the one part of putting that underpins everything, and also the part that people don't practice enough and put enough emphasis on. Simply, if golfers three putted less, they would shoot better scores, and three putts tend to start from poor speed control. But if your speed's off, more than likely your reads are going to be off as well, and also your line. So if you're hitting at different speeds constantly or not matching the speed relative to the length of putt, the line that you're going to be choosing is going to be very off. For example, something that's overhit too hard is not going to take as much break, so it can look like that you've misread it, but simply if you've hit it 5-6 foot past your pin, then it's actually a speed issue, not a line issue. Okay, so for me, speed underpins absolutely everything. And what I'm going to walk you through now is a very simple drill to help you practice your speeds, but also regulate your stroke length to different length putts. Now, most of your putts on a golf course are going to be between 10, 20 and 30 feet, all right? Of course, if you play at a golf course that has bigger greens, you're going to get the odd one or two that are slightly longer, okay? But generally speaking, most of your putts in a round of golf will be in these distances, okay? So this is where we need to get better at. And ultimately, anything outside of 20 feet, golfers should start to think about three putting less, not holing more putts, all right? And certainly from here, giving yourself less stress in that last phase to do, right? So how I'm going to start this, what I'm going to do, I'm going to hit 3 golf balls. So I'm going to have the golf ball in line with the tee peg, okay? And I'm going to hit 3 putts. And what I'm going to do, each time, I'm going to record the length of my backswing. So I'm going to put a tee peg down of where the face of the putter finishes in the length of the backswing, okay? Not the back of the putter, because obviously everyone has different styles of putters, some blades, some bigger mallets, all right? So we're always monitoring the face. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to see if there's a consistency to that. I'm going to see if there's an average to that, or whether it changes a lot, all right? And then I'm going to start to see where the ball's gone, and we'll come to the rest of the drill in a minute. But initially, I'm going to hit 3 putts to 30 feet, and just keep an eye on where the back of the face of the putter finishes in the backswing. So just outside my foot visually there. And I'm not too worried about the putt yet. I'm just kind of thinking more about the consistency of it. Now, of course, because I've put that tee peg there, I'm probably going to start to get closer to that. There's a little bit longer, I think, that one there. And then we go again. Pretty similar to that second one there. Okay, so my stroke isn't varying too much in terms of length there, right? So I'm quite happy with how much that face control is varying in terms of the length of swing. Now, the only thing that could possibly go wrong here for me to not control the speed very well would be basically how quickly or slowly I end up accelerating the putter on the way through. So it's either going to be I'm speeding up the forward time, so therefore hitting the ball harder and more ball speed, or I'm slowing it down, which then decelerates the ball, okay? So the thing we now have to get right here is you take an average of those 3 stroke lengths, okay? So let's go for that back one there, because I think 2 of mine got to there, okay? So from 30 feet, I'm starting to get an idea of what the length of my stroke needs to be. Now, like I said a minute ago, the only thing I need to manage is the time that it takes for me to hit the putt, okay? Therefore, I know whether I've sped up too much or not enough, depending on where the ball finishes, right? So now we're going to do that again with 3 balls, but we're going to pay attention to the putt and the forward time this time. Go on. So what I've got within this drill is there's a flag at 2 feet behind the hole, okay? So this just gives me a little bit of guidance of whether I'm hitting this putt too hard or if it runs into the flag, obviously it's going to be at a point that the speed is probably too much. Okay, so what I'm now trying to do, I've established my backswing length, and now what I'm trying to do is make sure that the face of the putter gets to that T-peg. Okay, and my job now is to manage the stroke time on the way through to try and find some consistency and then the speed of the ball. All right, so my task is just to get the putter to that T-peg and then monitor where the ball finishes. So that was really good speed control. So it was finished between the flag and the hole. So really happy with that. So, and I know that got pretty much to that T-peg. So that tells me the tempo or my forward time is pretty good, right? So now I've just got to try and repeat that. Length of stroke doesn't change. I just got to keep trying to repeat the same forward time tempo. And again, I've managed to control that pretty well within that 2 foot bracket. Again. There you go, in the hole. So that's a pretty good putt. All right, so now all of a sudden I'm taking out the guesswork of what it is to control the speed. There's only ever one or two things. Is the stroke too long or too short? Or is the speed that I'm hitting the putt at too fast or too slow? Okay, so once you start to train the length of backswing, that gives you your feel of actually what the tempo should be at each distance. Or sorry, the tempo doesn't actually change for each distance. It's just the stroke length that arguably is going to change now from 30 foot, 20 foot and 10 foot, right? So now we'll go and do the same at the other end of the spectrum. We'll go do 10 foot, right? We're going to hit 3 putts from 10 feet. We'll get a gauge of the average stroke. And then what I should find there is that the tempo actually is going to feel really similar to what it was here at 30 feet. But I'm just using length of stroke to change distance rather than guessing on these things and manipulating on the way through all the time. So 10 feet, do exactly the same. I'm going to hit 3 putts and I'm going to monitor the average length of the backswing where the face finishes. Obviously, just keep an eye on the golf ball. I'm more interested in speed here. So definitely went a bit longer that one, and actually it was a little bit hotter, that putt as well. So I'm already starting to get an indication of my stroke length pretty quickly. Okay, another good controlled speed, and that was pretty much at that first T-peg, right? So I've hit 2 at there with good speed. So that's given me the length for 10 feet that I'm pretty happy with. Now just to test that off the back of what we've just done. So again, the only thing I'm trying to control here is the length of the stroke, and then just manage the tempo accordingly. Now I've got a good feel of what it was at 30 feet, so I'm just going to try and repeat that really for this 10-foot putt. And again, using the flag as my guideline to whether I've got the right speed or not. Okay, I went in the hole at a good pace. That's obviously a good indication there. Length of stroke was really good, so I managed the tempo time really well. And again, in the hole at really good speed. So straight away, I'm getting a really good feedback right off the tempo, even from the 30 foot straight into the 10 foot, because all I'm changing is the length of swing, not the speed of the stroke. So missed slightly on the high side, but again, really good speed. There's not going to be anything that's going to cause me any problems there with a tap in, right? So you'd repeat that, obviously, all 3 of these distances, right? 30 foot, 20 foot, 10 foot. And then to finish off, what we're going to do now is we're going to run through each of these length putts, but without the T-peg there, and just see if we're going to test it and see if we've got good control of the speed. And what you'll start to highlight is perhaps what distance needs a little bit more work. So whether it's 30 foot or whether it's the 10 foot or 20 foot, doesn't matter. And what distance actually you're quite comfortable with. So then the distance you're comfortable with, you can take that tempo feel and then try and make that adaptable to the other 2. So it will very quickly start to tell you where perhaps you just need to work more at on each certain distance. Okay, so we're going to test this, and I'm going to put a little bit of a point system to this, right? So you've got something you can measure and monitor when you're practicing. Something I think is super important for everyone to do. I get a lot of my golfers to do is make sure you've got something you can measure, record, and then go back and test. Okay, so very simple point system. It's if you hole it, it's a birdie. If you hit the flag or it's short of the hole, it's a bogey. Okay, or if you finish between the hole and the flag, it's a par. So that'll be good speed control. Birdie's obviously a great putt. Anything short, anything too long, we're going to say drop shot, okay? And the reason I'm putting emphasis on dropping shot from being short is because I'd like everyone to get in that habit of the speed control being between the hole and just slightly past, up to 18 inches to 2 feet past, means you're obviously going to give yourself a chance of holding more putts, right? Simple as that. So we get 3 from 20 feet. I'm starting at 20 feet. And remember, my goal here really is speed control. If I hole it, it's a bonus. That's a bonus. Okay, so 1 under. I think what you're going to see on the... So that was a little bit quick in forward time. Yes, I've dropped the shot straight off the back right, but I felt that, okay? I felt that. I know my stroke length was pretty similar to the first one, but I've just accelerated a bit too much there, so I've got some feedback. So I'm now just going to try and get that forward time back to where it needs to be. That's a better putt, much better putt. So good speed control, so nice par there. So from 20 feet, level par. I'm going to go into the 10 foot now. Okay. Now, still looking at controlling speed here really more than anything. If you bear in mind from 8 feet on the PGA Tour, the make percentage is only 50%. Okay, so I'm at 10 feet now. So although we like to think we're going to hole more of these, the best in the world are only holding half of what they actually come across in a round of golf. So really good results here would still be not to 3 putt. Okay, good speed. Just miss it a little bit on the high side, but I'm happy with that. Same again, really good speed. Same again, but 3 really good speeds. So although I didn't hole one, I'm not overly disappointed because I've not given myself any stress on the tap-ins, right? And lastly, 30 feet. So you can mix these distances up how you want, by the way. You don't have to necessarily go 10, 20, 30 or 30, 20, 10. Do whatever you feel. Or you might just simply want to spend much more time on whatever one it is you need more work at. Okay, 30 feet. So obviously definitely getting slightly harder now. Get to the hole. Yep, so pin height, I'm okay with that. So again, good control of speed, no stress there. Slightly short, so it's a good part, I'm happy with that, but for the sake of the drill, like I said, we're putting emphasis on the fact I want it just a touch past, because you never know, you might start to drop a couple of these in. So I have dropped a shot there, so 1 over. And then exactly the same. So slightly short again, not a bad putt, but 2 over for the game. And to be honest, this would run true actually what I'd see in my game. Perhaps not aggressive enough on my 30-footers in terms of the pace that they're going in at. That would represent roughly what I would actually see on the golf course. So for me personally, looking at that, well, I've dropped 2 shots on this game at 30 feet. So I'd make some notes of that, do some more practice at 30 feet, and then record it next time and see if I can get a better score than that. So 30-foot putt, pretty common distance we're all going to get out on the golf course. And remember, the job here is to not 3-putt, not hole it, okay? Golfers need to 3-putt less. They don't need to hole more putts. So anything outside of 20 feet, I'm always thinking that my job is just not to 3-putt. And if I hole a couple, I obviously get really lucky, right? I'm going to be picking up shots on the field relative to everybody else. But outside of 20 feet, really it's just about controlling the speeds and obviously being able to have some sort of good read to give myself an easier second putt. Now, I know from practicing sort of like my length of backstroke and then my tempo, how this feels for 30 foot. So I'm just here really, I'm just rehearsing that feel and the length of backswing and the tempo time. And then I'm just going to try and repeat the same thing then over the putt, just thinking about more speed than anything else. So I'm really happy with that putt. It's a really good speed. It's finished actually a foot past the hole, which would have been a really good speed for it to go in at. But I've done my job here. I've not brought in the 3 putt, and I've not given myself a nasty 4 or 5 footer to have to try and then save par on the next. So done all those and got some baseline numbers here, right? These are some numbers now you can start to work off of and practice, start to dial in. Now, as you start to improve technically, perhaps these things might start to change, but as long as you've got a really good guideline of where you're starting from, and then you can start to work on any inefficiencies that you have, right? But the thing you're going to find across this with the wedges, like I said, you're going to get cross yardages. You're going to get some shots that go the same distance with full swing versus shoulder. But like I said, different ways of getting there and ways you might just find that you're more consistent with. So, you know, an obvious one for me here would be my 56 flat out at 90 yards. Crosses very nicely with my 50 shoulder at 94. So they're both in a very similar yardage there, right? So that gives me 2 options depending on where the pin is, what I'm feeling like on any given day. I've got, you know, 2 options that I can hit to that same distance. And again, this will fluctuate depending on pin positions. Front pins, I might want to use my 56 because I know it's going to be up and stop. Back pins, I might want to use my 50. But again, I might just find, and I do a bit more testing on this, and you guys can do this as well, that you're actually more consistent with a softer shot. And I know I'm a little bit more consistent hitting a softer shoulder 50 than I am a flat out 56, just the way I've always liked to hit wedges. And to be honest, something I tend to get people to do more of is learn to hit softer wedge shots and not trying to hit them as far as they go, because the longer that golf ball gets up in the air, the more it's spinning, the harder it is to control. And really we're looking at controlling, like I said, the carry distance and how the launch window relates to that as well. So another really, really good exercise that I think every single golfer should do more often, get better at, something you can keep retesting. Again, these indoor facilities, the TrackMan, the Foresight, they've got great performance games on there that you can keep going to test yourself on. Even the Top Tracer ranges these days that a lot of golf clubs have got, they have great games and ways where you guys can go and just keep testing this, get a baseline, and then when you're out on the golf course, you really start to know and understand your game in a much, much better way.